Supreme Court today called for a broad mechanism to address the horrific video case and the persisting violence against women in Manipur. Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, representing the centre, stated that the government has no objection to the top court monitoring the case and that the centre has never asked for the case to be transferred to anywhere beyond Assam. Meanwhile, senior advocate Kapil Sibal, appearing for the two victims from Manipur, said that women have expressed their disapproval of the CBI intervening in the matter. CJ Chandrachud highlighted that this is not an isolated case but involves systemic problems. He's also questioned the state government as to what the police was doing for such a long time. We'll take the statements of the CJI one by one and yet a perspective from our panelists as well. I have with me Major General A.K. Sivach. I also have with me on the broadcast Major General G.G. Dwivedi. We also have with us R.V.S. Mani and Advocate K.V. Dhananjay. Let me begin with Major General Dwivedi, if I can. Sir, as far as the updates for the action plan are concerned in Manipur, we've heard today that the Supreme Court was hearing the matter and some strong statements have come from the Chief Justice. He says that while one video, of course, has gone viral, but there could be mighty victims and there is violence on both sides. It's an issue of communal strife. And the idea is to ultimately restore faith of the communities in the constitutional processes. What do you make of the court now intervening in the matter and also saying that setting up of just an SIT or a simple CBI probe into the matter is perhaps not enough because too much time has passed as far as Manipur is concerned, and this is not really an isolated case. One video has gone viral, but it does seem, as from reports, that there would be other cases of sexual violence against women.
Absolutely, Devika. I think what the Chief Justice stated, I think he has made very, very pertinent points. And those points require and merit very detailed consideration. I'll take 2-3 statements of his. Firstly, Chief Justice has stated that the level of violence is unprecedented, and that's a very strong statement. And those of us who have served in Manipur on multiple assignments, and in fact last I was the division commander in Manipur, this situation in Manipur has no parallel. In fact, I think it cannot be compared anywhere else, and rightly so. I think the state machinery, even the center, has failed to actually comprehend and also to mitigate the situation. I'd like to make 2-3 important points. Firstly, today Manipur is in a very, very dangerous and precarious situation because the villages have been fortified and there is almost 4,000 to 5,000 arms. And the insurgent groups also have taken up positions. So today, Manipur is a battle zone. Secondly, very rightly, the Supreme Court have pointed out that this is not just a case. I think there is a whole lot of issues, and the kind of violence and the cases, only few have surfaced. There's much more that lies beneath. And the mechanism, I think the total machinery has failed, and therefore, very rightly, the Supreme Court and the Chief Justice said that this situation must be tackled holistically. And I would say that this situation requires a multi-pronged approach. It's the time for the political parties to put politics on the back burner and address the situation as a national security, as a national calamity. So therefore, first and foremost, the political process must start. Secondly, the judicial process that is on, I think it should be fair, it should be fast, and it should be one which convinces all the communities that a very strong cognizance has been taken up on priority. Thirdly, I think the structure that is existing today, that needs to be overhauled because this structure, this governance cannot handle this situation. I think we need to bring in an administrator with the due structures and also mechanism that can handle this situation. And lastly, the security forces must have very well-defined role. Today, the army is only in aid to civil authorities. It's acting only when at the beck and call, when called for. I think we need to first and foremost disarm these villages and the insurgent groups, and for that army has a prime role. We have to seal the border, because when the border is porous, any amount of arm will flow in. Assam rifle must come in, and then the state police and the paramilitary forces must ensure law and order. So in nutshell, I would say the Supreme Court and Chief Justice have made very, very pertinent statement. They need to be taken up on the political and also on the security front, and we need to address the calamity of Manipur as a national calamity and not a law and order situation or not a particular state specific. I think whole Northeast is actually deeply affected, and finally Northeast is a shield against China, against the hostile neighborhood, and we cannot afford to fracture this very important piece of our country.
Absolutely. Let me bring in Major General A.K. Sivach as well. Major General Sivach, another point that was raised in the court today by the Chief Justice is the fact that the focus now needs to be on rebuilding the lives. And like I said, he's also reiterated the fact that while one case has come to light, there would be several others. Initial reports told us that this entire incident of the two Kuki women being paraded naked was in fact triggered by some fake news of a mighty woman being raped, and that's what triggered the mob against the Kukis. So I'm assuming that while this has happened to two women and it's come to light through this video, there would be several other cases as well. Given that we're looking at the possibility of many such cases, how does the state then go ahead and handle the sort of devastation that sexual violence against women causes in these sort of situations?
Yeah, Devika, there is no doubt after this incident has come to light, one has come to know that such incidents have taken place. But this is only a tip in the iceberg. There may be many more such instances must have taken place, because after 3rd May, the Manipur was burning. The situation was deteriorating every day, and there are about 6,000 zero FIRs were registered. There are many cases which are still not being reported due to many reasons. So once they will come out, and you will find it that it is our head will hung in shame in case we come to know. There are a lot of cases, mainly the violence against women. Then there are cases of murder. There are cases of arson, looting. So it was, one can say, a supper night. Everywhere you're finding the amenities which were there in the society. They were totally disabled. And the way these two communities have fought, and the police has unable to control that violence, that is a cause of concern. Now, the point which is coming is that the Supreme Court is raising an issue that, of course, how many FIRs been launched, and what action the police has taken, why it has taken so much time for the zero FIR to go to the main jurisdiction, and then basically on 20th July only the arrest has taken place. That is one part of the story. Now the other part of the story is the violence has taken place, and we know it, that it has gone beyond the control of the state government as well as the civil police. The army was called on aid to civil authority. To some extent, the law and order was tried to be brought in order, but it has not affected. The reason is 4 things. One is the number of weapons which were looted from the police armory. They are about 5,000. Only 1,000 has come back. 4,000 are still there in society. Another 3,000 to 4,000 weapons have come from Myanmar, because the border is porous between Myanmar and Manipur. That's another thing, that there are people which have come, Chin population which have come and migrated in Kuki areas, and they were doing poppy cultivation. There are extremists on both the side, and there was a suspension of orders. Of course, those weapons are intact, but they also have now started helping their own community. It was Kuki versus Metis. The terrorist or the extremist group have joined their mainstream. So therefore, there was almost a war zone, a civil war which is taking place between two communities. Unfortunately, we could not handle it well. But there I Drustai, and now at least we have to do twofold. One is to make sure whatever has happened, a strong action taken against the perpetrators, and investigation must be carried out impartial, fast, and people who are defaulters, they must be punished. The second is important roadmap. How do we bring the situation under control? That is the point which is there, very important. Because remember, Northeast Act East policy of the government was working. You will find that all these states were start progressing. But in case Manipur, as on today, if it is basically get disabled or you find violence coming, it will have direct ramification on Mizoram and also Nagaland. There are large population which is also settled in Mizoram, and the people have gone from Manipur also there. In case if this problem is not resolved, it will have direct influence there in Mizoram, and this has been already stated. And same way in Nagaland, because they are the same Nagas which are there in Manipur also toward Nagaland. So the point is we have to make sure that the roadmap is made and peace is brought back. I suppose there are 3-4 things which need to be done. One is no peace can prevail till these weapons are not taken back. That is point number one. Therefore, there is a requirement of a unified command, an army called in a counterinsurgency role, do a basically combating operation, try to get these weapons back. And then only the peace can prevail. Then talks have to be there between two communities, basically Metis and Kukis. We have to bring them together. Whatever are their differences, try to narrow that. And impartial investigation to be carried out, which will be monitored by Supreme Court, no doubt. You'll find the things coming in a very correct shape. Then what it is required to be done is that as on today also you find the number of roads are blocked. Imphal to Kohima is also blocked. You are not finding that the basic amenities are coming to Imphal. That must be, again, make it operationalized. So overall, what is required to done is that confidence has to come back, and the gap between the two communities have to reduce, and the weapons which are there have to be brought out. Until that does not, you will not find any peace coming, because the whole environment is charged. It's a war zone. It's a war going on between two communities. There are bunkers made within Manipur. That is a cause of concern. And we want to act fast and fast so that it doesn't spread in other parts of Northeast, which is progressing quite a bit in last about 10 years.
Absolutely. And I'm going to just pick on the last point that you said and take it to RVS Mani. RVS Mani, when we talk about confidence building, that's something that the court has also said. The point now is that after so many months of violence, and a lot of us not actually understanding what's happening on the ground in Manipur, there is a need for this confidence building and restoring people's faith, restoring the community's faith in constitutional processes. The Supreme Court has also now made several questions on the cops. What is it that the cops were doing? They've spoken strictly about this one particular case, that if it's happened on the 4th of May and an FIR has been registered 2 weeks later, what exactly were the cops doing? Serious allegations have been made against the police by the counsel of the two victims, saying that the cops are actually hands in glove with the bad elements of both of these communities that are carrying out these atrocities. What is it that we need to do quite rapidly in terms of restoring the faith in the law and order machinery itself?
Let me get it very clear. General Sivaj has beautifully brought out. Our system is of a little adversarial litigation, so whatever the counsel for the two victims he threw in front of the Supreme Court might have been a little overreach. Notwithstanding that, point well taken. More well taken is the ideas of the Honorable Chief Justice for getting it right. So we may have so many other victims of such type of instances during the course of riot. We do not know how much of it is absolutely. So on that, basically on that particular point, some sort of a truth and reconciliation commission is required, independent of anything else. That does not mean that we go and mix up the roles. The roles have to be very clear. Disarming the citizens of the country, of the state, as suggested by Dwivedi, that don't put the Indian Army to aid the district administration, give them a unified command and the role to disarm and go and flush out the combing and flushing out the arms which have illegally have been stolen from the police the armory in Pangal. That has to be recovered, as well as those arms which have come through the Myanmar route. That is action number 2, point number 2. Third is apart from that, the trust building between the two communities are very, very vital. Otherwise, we cannot go ahead with anything. So, for once you disarm them, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission has to be independent of that in the sense that it gives the required confidence in the people of this Manipur that justice will be done if they have been victims. They can go and confess before the TRC. But having said that, after disarming, this is the second step. Third, get into the mediation mode to create a sort of trust between the two communities which are at each other's throat as of now. We know that the state was at directionless during the initial stages. Thereafter, they tried many methods and all. So, a particular roadmap beyond that. See, today it is that on a short-term basis, we have suggested 3 steps. On a longer-term basis, how to restore the entire northeast region, because this should not spill. That also cordoning off and everything. Please have a relook at several of these initiatives, including the diplomatic relationship with China and Myanmar. If Myanmar, that 16-kilometer rule has to be revisited or regulated or recalibrated, from our side, we need to address that and do it. But that it should be open only to India and Myanmar residents, and no other people can enter. So many things are there. That has to be a separate team for the development of Northeast, should be taken with a developmental agenda, so that the Act East policy of the Honorable Prime Minister also has to be dovetailed into that. On that basis, you have to take it forward. So let us say, one is the TRC, number 2 is disarming the entire civil population, and that you can give only to the total autonomy in the army or the security forces, so that they can only flush out.
Okay.
Civil administration abjectly failed in this reason. They allowed the arms to be looted from a police armory in police arms depot in Bengal. So that has to be discounted. And please give total autonomy in respect of these certain domains to the Indian Army or the Indian security forces. Third, the mediation process with eminent people from the citizens from the both sides, or eminent citizens of Northeast be leading the mediation process. And fourth, the development process has to be reignited. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay. Let me now bring in KV Dhananjay as well. KV Dhananjay, you've heard the perspective of our other experts. What I want to understand from you is, everybody says that there's a need for a Truth and Reconciliation Committee, and there's also need to give the army all the power and authority to disarm the perpetrators of this violence. Now, this is not just limited to sexual violence against women that may have happened. There have also been persecutions on the streets. There have been murders on the streets. There has been arson against communities. Once those perpetrators are flushed out from all communities alike by, say, the police and the army, what is the intervention that is then required from, say, the courts of our country or the legal community to then take those matters up swiftly and make them reach some sort of logical conclusion?
Well, it's a good thing that the Supreme Court is taking up this matter, but the legal system, the police machinery in this country ought not to be looked at as something wherein if they fail to act, and 2 months later the Supreme Court can remedy the situation. This is no way to look at the scenario. To start with, the Supreme Court again has limitations of its own. We are dealing with a territory which we don't completely comprehend, because there is no clear information coming out from the central government on what is the actual situation in Manipur right now and what has been the trajectory of the violence over the last 2 months. Of course, the central government is worried about the opposition making mincemeat of the central government's weakness. Should the central government be forthright and then say what really has been the problem there? So, the Supreme Court coming forward to deliver justice to the women who were seen in the viral video and more other women is always welcome. But I don't think we would be, getting the women in Manipur to feel safe unless and until we also take the police to task. It's important because the way the legal system or the way the police mechanism works in India is, All of these offenses, be it a rape of a woman or other sexual offenses, have all been made cognizable. Now, the purpose of making an offense cognizable is so that the police would be able to immediately act on the information that an offense has just been committed, go over to the spot concerned, arrest the perpetrator, or immediately after, maybe a day or two, they will make sure that the perpetrator is arrested and they will take a statement of the victim and then produce a victim before the court. All of these things don't require the police to take anybody's orders. One of the reasons why we have the Indian Penal Code, which has been made applicable to Manipur to a great extent, and the Criminal Procedure Code is to give to the police these powers to act immediately as and when the exigency arises. Now, we have had a police force in Manipur and we've seen them not do anything so far as these sexual offenses are concerned. Why is that the scenario? Now, why don't we take the police to task? Now, if we start taking the police to task, it's possible that the police might say that, look, they were under instructions from someone that should they try to do something, then that will only escalate the situation further. In that event, it's important for the police then to say, maybe in deposition or something, that this is the kind of instruction that was given. Then it's important to know who gave them those instructions and what authority did they have to give those instructions. If we are not going to do any of those things, and if we simply go on with mortem here, it's not going to do great, justice here, number one. Number two, and we also should not exaggerate the abilities of the Central Bureau of Investigation. The Central Bureau of Investigation is just another glorified police force of the central government. And I'm right now sitting in Bangalore, and I can tell you there is great anger against the CBI because a couple of cases that were entrusted to it all ended up in a dead end. There is one case that actually is already a big issue in the media here because the CBI, over a period of 10 years, could not crack it. So, we should not hope too much about the CBI being able to make much of a difference here. It is the police, it's a local police, the Manipur police. Why didn't they not do much? And the Supreme Court is in Delhi, and Delhi is so much, quite a distance from Manipur. We have a High Court in Manipur itself, and judicial appointments in this country happen by virtue of a collegium in the Supreme Court, which actually recommends appointments to the High Courts. What is the Chief Justice of the Manipur High Court doing? And why is it that the Supreme Court does not raise these questions? I mean, look, the judges in this country are mostly appointed by judges themselves. And yet the Supreme Court of India does not bother to take to task the silence of the Manipur High Court. Now, we have a Manipur High Court and we have a Chief Justice. Why does not the Chief Justice take up these issues suo moto? And these viral videos became public knowledge so much later. But I'm very sure within Manipur, this was information that was actually made available on a daily basis. Why would not the Manipur Chief Justice take suo moto action? And why do we see failure on the part of the Manipur High Court Chief Justice? And what is the Supreme Court going to do about it? This debate in Delhi after an event, 2 months after an event, is not going to save us. Legal talent in this country being available and then congregating in the Supreme Court is not going to solve this country's problems. This country's problems will have to be solved locally. And when locally it is not solved, what are we going to do to the people who had a duty to act and whose failure is evident? It's so stark, it's so evident here.
Right.
And
absolutely.
this is the kind of approach I believe the Supreme Court will have to initiate as well. I mean, this will lead to uncomfortable scenarios. So be it. I mean, at the end of the day, judges of the High Court and the Supreme Court are judges, remove which we will need 2/3 majority in the Parliament. Now, why do we think the Constitution makes it so difficult? It is because the Constitution expects judges to perform a duty which will very often displease the government in power. And that is why we give them the protection. Now, to deserve that protection, it's important for the Supreme Court and also the High Court to take on the administration, no matter what the consequences. Like we have it in Asian law, let justice be done even if the heavens fall. Now, if only enough people in Manipur had acted at just the right time, we would not have even been debating 2 months later about this. And by the way, the damage is done. The women in Manipur are not going to feel safer because in Delhi there is this grand discussion happening in the Supreme Court chambers. It does not work that way. We need to do so much. And then for that, we need to start taking into account people in Manipur who failed this country, who failed the women of Manipur at that time.
Absolutely. This is, as has been pointed out by all of our panelists, a very, very complex discussion. Everybody, we gather almost on a daily basis to understand what is it that can be done better, what are the issues that need to be looked at. Hopefully, some sort of solutions do arise out of these conversations that we have, and hopefully they will reach the people of Manipur who've been suffering for many months now. But that's all the time, viewers, that we have for this debate on
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.